Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. If you are new here, we are a minimalist family who is living big with less, and today I wanted to share with you a little bit about how we got started with minimalism, why we got started, what sort of family we grew up in, how Caleb and I differed to when we begin with was he a minimalist? Was I a minimalist? And these are questions that come up really often on my channel, and so I thought it'd be great to have one video where I can answer all these questions for you. So if you're curious about my why or how our journey started, stick around. Okay guys, I get so many questions about, was Caleb a minimalist when we met? How did I get him on board? Did I grow up a minimalist? Have I always been this way? And I thought it'd be great to answer some of those questions for you and share with you a little bit about our minimalist journey and how we sort of, all the evolutions that has taken. So let's get started. Was I always a minimalist? Me personally, I think I've always tended to be that way. Even as a child, I really loved organization and cleanliness and being part of a big family. I have 8 brothers and sisters, and so being part of a big family meant that things were always a little bit higgledy-piggledy. My grandparents on my mum's side, so my mum's mum and dad, were textbook hoarders. So they kept everything, lots of furniture, lots of piles of stuff. You'd open their fridge and it would always be full of stuff. And I know that was really frustrating for my mum growing up like that, and then also as an adult having her parents just have to hold on to everything. And I also saw that there was a lot of bickering between my grandparents. My grandparents loved each other very much, but I know that this was an area of stress for them, as in whose stuff was it, the cleaning up, the stress around finding things when they were trying to leave. You know, if we were going camping, there would always be this huge hullabaloo about where everything was and why wasn't it packed away here. And so from really early on, I picked up these stresses in both my grandparents and my mum. I could also see that it was hard for my mum to sometimes get out of the house because, you know, we were running to find things, or my mum would have a lot of clothes, and so she would really struggle with, you know, finding a system that was working for her. I don't come from minimalist background. That's not how I grew up. I had a fantastic childhood, but that's just not something I grew up with. But it is a part of my personality. So yes and no, sort of. Now, when I left home, I lived in share houses. I don't know if that's a thing in other places, but I had flatmates. I lived with my cousin. We had a wonderful time. And most of the time I was confined to one room. So all of my belongings belonged in one room, and then the rest of the house was shared areas. And so I got really good at keeping the things I love and paring it down. I still wouldn't say it was minimal at that point, but I was used to keeping it to one room. Being a flatmate situation, you know, I changed homes a lot just for work and different circumstances. So moving was always in the back of my mind. Oh, I'm not going to want to move that, so I wouldn't buy big furniture and that sort of thing. So when I was out on my own, I guess you could say that was sort of the start of my minimalist journey. And then when I was 21, I had a gallbladder operation, which did not go well, and so there was all sorts of complications, and since that time I've had about 20 surgeries, and I've been left with a condition called sphincter of Oddi dysfunction, which is basically, in a nutshell, it's an upper gastrointestinal disorder, and it causes my body to push bile back into the pancreas and the liver, so I get pancreatitis and jaundice quite regularly. And then when that happened, I got like this huge wake-up call of like, whoa, I'm sick, what felt like all the time. And so over those few years, I got really good at doing what I needed to do to survive. So keeping things super simple, making simple food that was good for me because I was FODMAPing and all sorts of things. I got really good at keeping my space, so my bedroom in my share house, to a really manageable level so that it could stay clean while I was there. Everything in my life had to become super manageable. And it was at this time that I met Caleb, who is now my husband. And luckily for me, he came as a package with 2 wonderful children. And so when we first got married and when we were dating, I realized that I was going to need to apply these skills that I'd already started to do because of the sickness, if I was going to be taking care of 2 children some of the time with my husband. And that was really important. It was really important to me that, you know, I created a beautiful home for them that they wanted to be in, that felt like their home. So that was sort of like when things started to ramp up even further. Caleb, when I first met him, definitely was not a minimalist. He was very tidy, very clean. Like there was no piles of stuff or anything like that. But he had inherited a whole heap of stuff from his nan who had moved into a nursing home. So he had like these pictures on his wall and a lot of really big, dark, heavy furniture, a lot of clothes. Oh my days. I wish I had the photo. We had a photo loss situation, but when we first went through his cupboard, I got rid of like a mountain of clothes. I said to him one day, I'm like, do you like that picture? And he's like, no, not really. And I was like, well, why do you keep it there? And he's like, oh, just so there's something on the wall. And I was like, you do know that you can just leave the wall blank till you find something you really like. And he's like, oh yeah. So then that sort of started his process to letting things go. And then when we got married and moved in together, we did a really big purge so we could sort of start afresh and have, you know, lots of things that we really loved and enjoyed, but it was still not minimalist, but intentional. So that was great. Seth and Ruby, Caleb's older 2 children, they had their own rooms and they had plenty of things there for when they came. But then I fell pregnant with Siri, our 7, almost 8-year-old, and things really hit where the rubber met the road. I was extremely sick. So my body was not coping very well with being pregnant. The complications with the disorder I have and a baby pushing on those organs, as well as me not being able to eat properly, it was a whole big mess. So much so that my parents-in-law used to have to come and help me just to survive because it was so bad. And my mum moved up from Tasmania because I was just so sick. So needless to say, I really had to focus on what I needed to do to survive. And I knew that when I had a newborn, I would need to do what needed to be done. So I simplified even more. I bought very little for a baby. One of the things that works in my favor is that I am super frugal. I really don't like spending money. I especially don't like it if it's wasteful or if there was a way I could have done it cheaper. There is like nothing worse to me than finding out I could have got something cheaper. So that works in my favor in that I'm really happy to give things a go. I'm happy to try it. I'm happy to use what I've got to make things work. And so this was like a huge point in our lives where we really started to simplify. We didn't have a huge amount of toys so that I knew that I could clean it up at the end of the day. And I kept everything really manageable. I didn't get a whole heap of clothes for Siri when she was born so that I could just wash and keep on top of it all the time. So that is sort of the point where I'd say that our minimalist journey really began, full on, like actually purging stuff and not bringing anything new because I was so sick that I needed it to make it work. So my minimalism starting was purely and simply survival. I just had to get rid of the stuff because I couldn't cope with the mess. If it was messy, that would cause me stress and make me sicker. And so this was the only way I could keep my house to a level that wasn't causing me stress whilst keeping it manageable. Then we moved house and we bought a house, and my husband and I were really passionate about getting out of debt, and we were saving and paying down our mortgage and paying off our other debts so that we could be debt free. And that is where I watched a TED talk, which is called Sell Your Crap, Get Out of Debt and Start Living. I'll link it down below for you. And that, I looked at my husband and I was like, this is us. We don't want this. We want to be free of stuff. We're going to be free of debt. I don't want to live like this anymore. And so we got really passionate about paying down our debts, and then we decided to sell our home because there was a whole heap of reasons why, but a big part of it was that we wanted to downsize. We were in like a complex situation, so we were paying huge body corporate fees, and I was like, I just want to be free. I want to be free to have adventures, to travel. By this time, we've had Winnie, and so I was like, that's it. Minimalism is for us. Debt-free living is for us. We had looked at all sorts of alternatives like tiny house living and container homes, and if I'm honest, those are still our dreams. I would love to live in a tiny house. I would love to live in a small container home. Right now, with the laws in Australia, it's not that doable for us, but we are saving money like we are living our dreams. So we put all of our money aside, ready for the day where we can buy land and build our dream container home or tiny home or whatever that looks like at the time. And we are debt free, which has been amazing. If you want to ask me my number one tip for simple living, it's get debt free. The freedom that comes with it is huge. And so during that process of selling our home, we had another opportunity to purge and really get our items down to a level that was super manageable. We had to move all of our stuff into storage for a short time. And so I was like, I'm getting the smallest storage unit you can get, and our stuff is just going to have to fit in there. So we downsized everything. And since then, I have never looked back. I don't regret anything I got rid of. Very, very few things. I can think of maybe one thing I got rid of that I had to repurchase again, and it was super cheap. So that is basically our minimalist journey in a nutshell. I wanted to just share our story with you so that you would, maybe if you're at that cusp of wanting to get rid of stuff, or you've gotten rid of the first few layers of stuff and you're at that point where it's hard. It's like, oh, what if I need this, or what if I run out of this? But minimalism is something that you have either seen results from or you think it would really benefit you. I'm here to say it does work. It saves my sanity. I still get sick quite often, unfortunately. Although it's mostly under control, the freedom of knowing that this house will stay in control. There's not going to be a mess that's too big for me to clean up. Even if I get sick, my family can continue to go on and find stuff and function and get to school and get to activities and find what they need to find, because we're not overcome with stuff. That helps me to sleep at night. The reduction in my anxiety is huge. Like, I just even notice it now when I see even a small amount of stuff build up. When I get to purge that feeling of things working really well again, nothing beats it. My kids play so much. They play outside, we go on adventures, they play with their toys, we have friends over all the time. I swear to you, our house is full of friends and laughter and play all the time, even though we don't have a huge amount of toys. So if that is something you're worrying about, please don't. Children are amazing and their imaginations are amazing, and they will surprise you and delight you in ways you never thought you could if toys are a problem for you. My kids always have clothes to wear. There's no trouble. And like I said, I don't regret a single thing I got rid of. I hope that this has shed a little bit of light for you on my minimalist journey, my minimalist why, how it changed my life. If you would like to see any other parts of our home. I think I've done a video on pretty much every room and cupboard in this house. If you're new, we would love to have you subscribe. Join us on our journey. I can't wait to chat to you down in the comments. Share with us your minimalist journey, or where you're at, or why you found minimalism, because I find that so interesting. You know, my why is going to be completely different to yours. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.